The night they arrested my father, he was still holding the bedtime book he promised to finish. They said he was a monster. The headlines buried the truth. The courts buried him. And for 15 years, I stayed buried too. Until I came back with a new name. And a list. Before you hear my story, tap subscribe and drop a comment if you've ever been silenced, shamed, or underestimated. I was 10 when they took him away. I still remember the sound of the rain that night, like the sky was sobbing louder than I ever could. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and boiled eggs. Mom was humming a song she used to sing before everything turned bitter. My father, tall, careful, always half lost in thought, was at the sink, sleeves rolled, washing blood off his hands. Not his blood. He looked at me, eyes empty and distant. Then he said something that still haunts my dreams. Don't believe them. No matter what they say, don't believe them. Minutes later, the door exploded inward, splinters raining down. Police screamed. Guns raised. My father didn't resist. Didn't speak. Just dropped the towel, raised his hands, and knelt. That was the last time I saw him as a man. The next time, he was a monster. At least, that's what the headline said. They said he killed a girl. A teenager. One of his students. They said they found photos, messages, recordings. It was everywhere. The news. School. Whispers in the hallway. Parents grabbing their children tighter as I passed. The trial was swift. The sentence brutal. My father was dragged into the courtroom in chains. People spat. Shouted slurs. The judge's face was carved from stone. The jury didn't meet my eyes. Mom stopped speaking the week after the arrest. One morning, she was gone. No note. No trace. Just her wedding ring on the kitchen table. They moved me to foster care after that. I wasn't safe, they said, but here's the thing no one ever talked about. None of the evidence made sense. There were inconsistencies. Missing timestamps. Wrong file formats. Fake text trails. Yes, even at that time, I knew enough about my dad's tech job to know how easy it was to plant things. But I was just a kid. Grieving. Alone, and worst of all, I had no proof. So I buried it. Deep. They gave me a new last name, Parsons. A new home. A new therapist. I went from school to school, face tight, fists clenched, heart always half burning. Each night, I'd lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, whispering his name. Not the monster. Not the criminal. Just my dad. I knew something others didn't. He didn't fight back because he knew he couldn't win. Not against them, because it wasn't a random setup. It was engineered, and though no one believed me, I kept a notebook. Every teacher who testified. Every detective involved. The prosecutor with the smirk. The tech expert whose testimony changed everything. I kept their names. Dates. Faces. Lies. One by one. I didn't know what I'd do with them. But I knew I'd do something. My name is Jonah Parsons now. But my blood still belongs to Jonah Hart, the boy they raised. I work as a junior analyst for a firm that handles legal defense strategy. Irony, right, the kind of place that buries stories like my father's. I got in through the back door. Forged credentials. Fake resume. It wasn't hard. If you know how corruption works, you learn how to mimic it, and one by one, the names from that list started to resurface. Older, more powerful, more arrogant. Judge Rolfson. Now retired, living in a gated villa outside Charleston. Detective Kern. Promoted to state investigator. Catherine Hart. The prosecutor. Now a media darling, best-selling author, justice warrior. She was the worst. She smiled when she said, "We are proud to remove monsters like Mr. Monroe from society." That video still plays in my mind, her lipstick too red, her eyes too gleeful. They all built their careers on my father's corpse, but now I was close enough to pull the string.it started with the tape. A VHS cassette buried in the back of an old evidence locker, long forgotten. A retired clerk tipped me off. He thought I was a podcaster looking into cold cases. What I saw on it made me shake. The night of the murder. The girl was seen on traffic cam footage 2 miles from the scene, after the supposed time of death. The timestamp was buried. Never submitted in court. Intentional.so I copied it. Digitized it. Stored it 6 ways from Sunday. And I knew what I had to do, not go public. Not yet. No, I had to destroy them the way they destroyed him, slowly, silently, with a smile on my face. That night, I stood in my bathroom, staring at the man I had become. A suit. Clean-shaven. Ice in my veins, but beneath it all, still that boy in the corner of the courtroom, clutching a stuffed bear, hearing words he couldn't understand. Life sentence. Disgraced. Predator. Monster. I whispered back, no. You were the monster. And that's when I felt it for the first time, not grief. Not rage. Control point. 2 weeks later, Catherine Hart entered my office. We were consulting on a high-profile corruption case. She smiled, oblivious. I shook her hand. She didn't recognize me. I knew then, this wouldn't just be revenge. This would be art. I leaned in and said, nice to finally meet you, Ms. Hart. I've heard so many stories. She laughed. Hope they were flattering. I smiled. Only the best monsters get remembered. Her eyes flickered. Just a moment. But I saw it, recognition. Doubt. A ghost of the past. It didn't matter. She'd know soon enough, and when she did, she'd beg for the mercy they never gave him. They say revenge should be served cold. But I didn't serve it. I built it, slowly, brick by brick, in the dark corners of my mind. It had been 15 years since Judge Raymond Harrow signed the paper that sealed my father's fate. 15 years since he sipped from his courtroom mug, barely looking up, and declared a good man guilty of a crime he didn't commit. I was 10. I still remember my father's face, stunned and pale, as the bailiff led him away. And I remember the judges. Bored. Unmoved. A man so used to ruin that mine was just another stamp in the day's file. Now, I stood just 50 feet from him, older, invisible, unrecognizable. I had returned to the city with a new name, a new life, and the kind of knowledge no child should ever have. And more importantly, I had access. Judge Harrow still lived in the same Georgian brick house, tucked into the wealthy end of Crestmore Park. Security cameras, an iron gate, freshly painted shutters. He'd built a fortress around himself. But no one checks for termites in the foundation. I didn't start with him. I started with his clerk. Her name was Miranda Sloan, mid-30s, career-obsessed, always looking over her shoulder. I met her at a legal tech conference in Denver, posing as a litigation researcher from a think tank that didn't exist. My badge said Jonathan Kruss. She never questioned it. You've worked under Harrow? She asked, feigning curiosity. He's legendary. She laughed. Legendary's one word for it. He's old school. Doesn't believe in digital evidence, still uses a typewriter for personal notes. Interesting, I said, letting just enough fascination slip into my tone. You must know where the skeletons are buried. She didn't answer. But she smiled. Over the next few weeks, I planted the seeds, emails, shared files, a favor here and there. I sent her a list of Harrow's rulings that mysteriously aligned with his campaign donors. Old information, publicly available. But I highlighted things she hadn't noticed. Suggested inconsistencies. Whispered plausible corruption. By the end of the month, Miranda was paranoid. She started double-checking court filings. Talking in hushed tones to coworkers. And just as her doubt peaked, I let her find the file. A red folder slipped into a briefcase. Inside, altered ruling drafts, financial spreadsheets, an unsigned letter of coercion, all fabricated. All believable. 3 days later, an anonymous tip hit a legal watchdog site. Miranda's voice cracked on the audio. They pressure us. He changes things after rulings are signed. I didn't know what to do. It went viral in under an hour. By sundown, Harrow's chambers were under investigation. I watched the press conference from a cheap motel. Judge Harrow stood in front of a wall of microphones, red-faced and defiant. I've served this city with honor for 32 years. This baseless slander, but his eyes told a different story. They were scanning. Widened. Searching for where the leak came from. He had no idea it was me. Not yet, but I wasn't finished. A week later, the second hit landed. His son, Thomas Harrow, was a junior partner at a corporate law firm. A smug, glassy-eyed trust fund parasite with a reputation for bending ethics like spoons. I used the same tactic: leverage their pride, feed them breadcrumbs, let their own ambition unravel them. This time, it was in SEC whistleblower report. Anonymous. Detailed. Tracing illicit stock tips from Thomas' personal account, leaked directly from sealed court rulings his father had overseen. He'd gotten sloppy. He thought the game was still his. It wasn't. Within 48 hours, Thomas was suspended from his firm and subpoenaed by federal investigators. His fiancée left. His car was keyed. His LinkedIn quietly vanished. Raymond Harrow watched the news from a hospital bed. Mild cardiac arrhythmia. Stress-induced. I smiled, but this wasn't about pain. Not really. It was about truth. About the moment they all turned inward and asked, what if he was innocent, because once that crack appears, they never sleep again. I sat across from Judge Harrow exactly 2 months later, inside his hospital room. He didn't recognize me. I worked on your ethics committee a few years back, I lied. Just checking on how you're holding up. He gave a tired nod, graying. Temples slick with sweat. They are circling like vultures, he said. The media. The damn feds. You try to help people, and this is what it gets you. I leaned closer. Voice low. Eyes steady. Did you help my father? Just. He blinked. What? In 2007. Richard Hart. Did you help him? His face stiffened. A ghost flickered behind his eyes. I don't remember the case. You should, I whispered. He died in prison. Innocent. Because of you. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood. My name's not Jonathan Cross. And I left. I had broken the judge. He didn't know my name, but he'd never forget my face. It haunted him now, in every monitor beep, in the silence between visitors. He had stared into the eyes of justice, and it had no robe, no gavel. Just quiet intent, but I wasn't finished. Not until the last 2 nails were driven in. The prosecutor. The detective, the ones who stitched the noose that hung my father's name, their names hadn't changed. Assistant District Attorney Elaine Monroe. The woman who called my father a manipulative predator in open court while staring straight at my mother and me like we were too stupid to understand. She'd built a career off that trial. She was a rising star back then. Now, she was a polished figurehead in the DA's office, the face of integrity. And then there was Detective Leo Smith. A tired bulldog of a man who'd forced a confession out of a frightened factory worker by threatening his wife's immigration status. That man's testimony was the keystone in the case. The same man had killed himself a year later. But that part never made the court record. I remembered the smirk on Smith's face when the verdict came in. It wasn't justice. It was conquest. I started with Elaine. The DA's office had a reputation for protecting its own, so I didn't go through them. I went through her carefully built image. She'd recently begun mentoring law students, filming interviews, giving TED-style talks, branding herself as a champion of reform. I studied every video, every panel, every social post. She always wore white. Always talked about truth. And always left out the case that made her. So I brought it back. One foggy Monday morning, her inbox was flooded with a mass email from an anonymous address. Subject line: when prosecutors lie, the Richard Hart case. Inside, a video, professionally edited, calm, haunting. It detailed the trial, outlined the inconsistencies, showed sealed court documents I shouldn't have had access to. And at the end, a question appeared on screen: Ada Monroe, would you still sleep as soundly if your own father had been railroaded? That clip went viral on legal TikTok. By Wednesday, local podcasts were dissecting it. By Friday, someone spray-painted liar on her front gate. Elaine didn't resign. Not right away. But she stopped mentoring. Stopped speaking publicly. And within 3 weeks, quietly went on indefinite medical leave. Smith was different. You can't humiliate a man who feels no shame. So I aimed for something colder. He lived alone now. Retired early. Drank a lot. Still carried himself like a man with a badge, chest out, chin high. But when I walked past him at the grocery store, I noticed something. He was limping, and in his cart, a single bottle of cheap whiskey, frozen dinners, arthritis cream. Men like Smith only feel the world slipping when you remind them of what they've buried. So I sent him reminders. It started with a printed photo slipped under his door, the witness. He bullied William Miller. Alive, in color. Smiling, Smith wouldn't know it was a stock photo I doctored. He only knew Diego died alone in a one-bedroom apartment a year after testifying. And now, someone was bringing him back. The next week, a letter arrived. You threatened him. You broke him. He hung himself with your lie. Signed, Jonah Hart. 2 nights later, Smith called his old captain in a panic. Reported a possible stalker. They sent a cruiser. No report filed. Just a drunk ex-cop spiraling. I watched it all unfold from a rented car across the street. The porch light flicked on and off all night. Smith didn't sleep. He started carrying a gun everywhere. Then, he stopped going out at all. I mailed him one last package. Inside, a recording of his interview with Diego. Unedited. Raw. You don't tell us what we want, your wife gets flagged by ICE. That's how this works. His voice. Crystal clear. Unforgivable. Attached was a note: you put one man in the ground and another behind bars. Guess which one I crawled out of? Smith never opened his door again. 1 week later, his house went dark, and 3 days after that, he was found slumped in his recliner, gun in hand, TV static humming. No note. Just a photo of William Miller in his lap. I didn't celebrate. There was no joy in any of it. Just a silence I had earned. I walked past the courthouse where my father was sentenced. The building was under renovation. The mural of justice for all had been taken down, brick by brick. I stood there a long time. Long enough for the sun to rise behind it. I still have dreams about my father. In some, he's holding my hand outside that courtroom. In others, he's just a voice, whispering, you did what you had to. But the truth is, I didn't do it for justice. I did it to remind them all that a monster is just what you make. When you cage something innocent for too long, tell me below, have you ever turned pain into purpose? Or witnessed a quiet storm that changed everything? If you felt that revenge burns slow and cold, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more real-life revenge stories. Your support keeps these stories alive. Thank you for being part of this healing. Until next time, stay steady, stay kind.